Join me every month for the inspiration to find your finish line. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Find Your Finish Line. I'm Mike Riley, and I hope you're having a good summer braving the heat in North America and Europe. And it's always tough when, events are canceled or they're shortened. But remember, keep a good attitude about it because they're things that are out of our control, out of race directors' control, out of communities' control. And the number one paramount thing is always your safety. So we've had a bit of a hiatus here on Find Your Finish Line for the last month or so because I've been getting my second book done, Finding Your Finish Line. And it's in formatting, and hopefully it'll be out by the end of August versus September. I'll be sending out a lot of notifications on how you can pre-order it and all that good stuff, and where I'll be for book signings in the future. And thank you for the support, because I've had a lot of people send me messages, can't wait to read it and all that good stuff. And I go into the studio next week, as a matter of fact, and do the audiobook like I did on my first book. But let's get to our guest. He grew up in the event business, and over the years, I've come across a lot of event directors who were inspired by dads, by moms, by uncles, by friends, to get in our endurance business. And it's something when someone decides to do that, because it's not an easy business to get into. And he, as a matter of fact, would hand out water at his father's events. And back when his father had the company, it was called Hits Endurance, which I remember very well. Now it's AlphaWin. He's a runner, a triathlete, and he's at the tip of the spear of bringing back a triathlon in New York City, the Big Apple Tri on October 10th. Welcome to Find Your Finish Line, Tommy Struzzieri. Welcome, Tommy.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mike. Appreciate it.
Well, you know what? My first question on Find Your Finish Line I always ask my guests, because I think I kind of like to catch them off guard or whatever. What kind of workout did you get in today? Did you?
Oh, of course, I got a workout in today. We mentioned prior to the podcast how hot it is here in New York this week, and so got out early. Got in. I have a little group that I meet at the track. I did 400s this morning, so
Whoa!
I was on the track this morning, 16 by 400, and getting some miles in running.
Good.
Maybe get out on the bike later today, but mostly getting the runs in early because of the heat.
Good for you. Good for you. And then my first question for you, are you a Knicks fan? Were you happy?
Of course, I'm a Knicks fan. So actually, and I think I'm one of the real Knicks fans left. Everybody's all excited about it now. And now they're all Knicks fans. My father and I went to pretty much every. I have to say, I went to every game this season, almost the home game. So
wow.
We were at the games 3 and 4. 3 was interesting because the president was there, right? And that was a craziness, just getting into the garden there. And then 4 was crazy because that, they came back from 29 down. So it was a crazy experience across the board for our Knicks. It kind of goes to show what we all embody in triathlon and sports in general, that, you can be down a lot of points, or you can be out from something, and you can come back, and you can, if you keep fighting. So that's why I believe in that Knicks team. I'm a very big fan of that Knicks team.
And I think the big thing about that too is, obviously it's been a lot of years since the Knicks have seen a championship. And when you're a fan embedded in a team, and year after year, and I'm a San Diego Padres fan, and we got to put up with the LA Dodgers, and it's just like, are we ever? Now my hope is, well, maybe my grandsons will see a world championship, And so when you're so ingrained in it, and to see him come back from 29, watching that game, I go, I don't believe what I'm seeing, but I think they're going to pull this one off. So you got to be very proud. Good for you. So where are you based out of? Where's the company out of? You're upstate. Are you near Lake George or?
Yeah, so we have a number of events in New York. We're based out of Saugerties, New York, which is about an hour and a half north of New York City. My family has a business in New York City as well, so kind of split time between the city and upstate. And then we have some races in Lake George, where we do a triathlon, and pretty much all around upstate, I spend a lot of time. So Adirondack region, but I do live in the Catskills. It's a great place to live.
Yeah.
I've never left. I've grew up here, and I don't think I'm planning on leaving anytime soon. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
Yeah, and you were a D1 runner for, Syracuse, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yes. So I walked onto that team.
Did you?
It
Good.
sounds like I'm a lot faster than I actually am when you say that. But there's to walk onto a team, I wanted to go from high school. I had some injury issues and just wanted to be Division 1. I knew Syracuse, they had won a national championship in cross country and prior to me being there, and I just wanted to be part of that atmosphere. And so, actually, if you want to get into this, I mean, it's a story is interesting of me getting on that team. Again, not the best runner, above average runner, but like I said about the Knicks, you can keep fighting and you'll get
Yeah.
you'll get to that finish line. I actually kind of showed up at practice every day, even though the coach told me not to come. I just kept showing up. I work out before the team. The track was a place where it was open. It was a public place, so I could work out while they were working out, and I would just work out next to them until they put me on the team. I threw up on his feet, I think, once, and he finally said, "Yeah, come to practice tomorrow." So that was a cool experience in my life, and I'm very proud of that.
Well, that's it. I love hearing that, and I've heard that so many times, and people that push through at a young age, and what they don't realize at the time is they build one heck of a foundation for themselves later on when things come their way, and they're throwing a curveball, and they go, "All right, I can handle this. I knew how to throw up when I was working out hard, you know. I can handle that hard stuff." So that's good to hear. So when you I think you were like 10 or 11 years old and you did your first race, but you were handing out water at your dad's races and the whole deal. When did all of a sudden it click for you, Tommy? You know what? I want to create a career for myself in endurance sports. I know we could say, well, you followed in your dad's footsteps and stuff, but you're your own individual, you're your own person. And
hmm
what was that
hmm
pivot point, that time when, you know what, I think I want to do this?
Yeah, so I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I spent my teenage years and before that handing out water, and my parents were always
Mm.
racers in local road races. My dad got into triathlon a little later in life, in his 50s, and I kind of just went to all those events and just fell in love with it. I think being at a finish line, as you know better than anybody, Mike, is inspiring because not just for the pro athletes, but for the person who's overcoming whatever it is that in their life that's been bothering them. And I think that's really what gets you into this sport. So it started when I was handing out water. It went into I did my first triathlon. It was one of our races. Back when I was able to actually do our races, now I'm too busy to actually compete
Yeah. You,
in them. Uh, but I did a race. I think I was like 11, or it was my first triathlon was like 11. I I I've never really been a swimmer. I think that's another thing about triathlon. You either come from biking or you come from running or you come from swimming. It's very hard to put the three together, as there's only a few people that can
Mhm.
really put all those three together and really be good at all three. And those people I'm always astounded by. But um I came and I think I was like last out of the water, and then got on the bike and didn't shift gears. It was a hilly course. It was near Lake George, and didn't shift gears, passed over on the bike, and then I carried myself to that to like third place overall. So that's really what got me into the sport, doing that first race. And then it just continued from there.
You were hooked early, and there's a myriad of stories out there of people that did their first triathlon or their first, 5K, 10K, and go, "Wow, there's something that has been lit in me, and I wanna do this again." It's a great feeling. So, your story is like a lot of other stories, but your story is different because you're now making a career out of it. So first off, I wanna congratulate you, the Big Apple Tri. The reason is because being in the business for so long, I know what it must have been like pulling off permits alone in New York City, for goodness sakes. I know what others have gone through, and it's a process that doesn't happen overnight. It's like not like in 2 months you got permits for that triathlon. How long did it take?
It's been a couple of years, actually trying to get that permit. It's the hardest place in the world to get those permits. We're not taking it for granted that we're doing something as as great as a triathlon in New York City, in Manhattan primarily. It's something that we're prepared for, but we're not. It just I always give a metaphor of when you do a marathon or you're doing a triathlon, whatever, especially you get up to those 140.6 distances. You don't start that training for that the day before or the week before, right? So you're starting a year out, or before that. And I think that's the same thing when you put on a race, is dedicating yourself for those training or preparation periods to get to that race day.
And when you got that final permit, how long was that before the race happens on October 10th? So you've been preparing for how
I mean,
long?
these it's funny, Mike. I did a race this past weekend where I got the permit on Friday before the race, right? So
Well,
the permit
that's kinda
itself
smaller, yeah.
the permit itself doesn't come till a little later, but you finally get past the barriers that get you to a spot where you're going to get the permit. Was when I announced in February,
Oh, okay,
um,
okay.
and we try to get it out as soon as possible. We want to get as much time to promote and have people plan their calendars and start training for this race.
Well, I give a company like yours props because you are the foundation, as I mentioned before, for, busting down that hard entry of coming into the triathlon world. It's not easy. And you have the shorter distances. Your company actually has a model distances for everyone. And I think that's fantastic because our sport needs feeder systems. We need many more than because I've heard so many times people go, "Hey, my first triathlon was a 70.3 or even an Ironman," and I'm thinking, "Well, what are you? That's crazy," and it shouldn't be that way. So, being known for having all distances, will you do the same for the Big Apple Tri?
So our motto is a distance for everyone,
Mhm.
like you said, and it basically, to me, that means more than just having every distance. It means anybody can compete in a triathlon and kind of reframe your mindset to get into something that might be more than you thought you could do. And so, but in the same realm, we're going to be adding so the New York City Triathlon, the previous race, um, was always just had an Olympic distance.
Yeah,
That's all they did was Olympic
yeah.
distance. And so we've added a sprint distance to that. So, again, going back to our permitting and how hard it is to get a permit in New York City, the fact that I was able to add a sprint distance was a lot and a good step for this first year, especially. It's a little bit different than the normal sprint. We're swimming a little bit longer, but you go with the tide, so no one's going to be bothered by the longer swim. But yeah, so we've sprinted Olympic for Big Apple this year.
And are you gonna do so you're gonna do relays?
Relays, we're doing aqua bike, duathlon, again, trying to do a distance for everyone. Same idea. We're really putting a lot of effort into our para categories. This New York City, when the triathlon used to exist, was big on para, and we're trying to replicate that and hope to do as good of a job at that. We just added we're part of next year in 2027. We'll be a part of the USA Tri Sprint Cup, which is
Oh,
basically
yeah.
a draft legal version of a lot of races where you can get points to the next level. And we've added kind of a preliminary version of that at this year's Big Apple Tri, where the first athletes, in the top group are going to be a part of our Big Apple Sprint Cup, and they'll race draft legal and they'll go out first and they'll be done with the bike before everybody else is there. So there will be a draft legal portion of this race, which is the first time that has happened in New York City.
Yeah, speaking of USAT, you gotta get Victoria Brumfield to come out and do the race, the CEO of USAT. As a matter of fact, and it just hit me. I announced that race with her one year, New York City Tri. Her and I went back and forth and did awards and everything, and that was the first time I met her. But yeah, you gotta get her out and to do the race.
She was out. She was at our restaurant in the city, the other day, and helping us promote it.
Good.
She's a big advocate for the sport. Obviously, a great decision, by the board to put her on a few years ago. I think she's changed a lot in the sport for the better. Again, that same idea of a distance for everyone, I think, is what she embodies as well, where she wants to get everybody, not just the pros in the sport, but new people, and is expanding the sport very well. Victoria was actually, as you mentioned, part of the team that put on the New York City Triathlon originally and made that Olympic bid when
Yeah.
they originally put it on. So she's been really, really helpful in this process as guidance to me, support. USA Triathlon always supports all of its race directors, but really especially helpful to have her in my corner.
Yeah, she's power. She's good. You know, it just hit me. You're putting a race on New York City, one of the toughest venues you could ever do. You're running in Central Park and the whole deal, but then you have to deal with, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, your customer base in the tri-state area is a very demanding and they want what they pay for type of base. So sometimes they come back at you for any little minor problem. Have you ever thought about that? Like, how you gonna you can't satisfy everybody, but you gotta make sure that you take care of your constituents as best you can. Does that ever worry you? Because it's a little different upstate New York than obviously the city itself.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. I think that there's, people want what and they deserve what they pay for, to get the value out of that. I think that in when you're in the spotlight, like you are, Mike, and I'm not in the spotlight, but in brief instances, I am. You have to kind of decide what is necessary to change. If someone's commenting on it, you get a lot of comments on it, then you can change those certain things. But then otherwise you have to feel good about, we're athletes. We take surveys of the athletes and get the majority feel of what's right and change those things or implement, even if we do something wrong, we would change those for next year or implement better things that they like about the races, whether it's amount of aid stations or what we were giving out at the aid stations, whatever it is. But in my life, um, my family has run events since I was born. My dad was in the horse show world for 50 years, built the largest equestrian show jumping company in the world, and those are demanding clients as well. That's a client that spends a lot and wants and deserves what they spend to get the right product. And so you're not going to satisfy everyone, like you said, but you have to satisfy yourself first and make sure you have you put on a race to be proud of or an event to be proud of. Where we have high expectations for our events because we're athletes ourselves, and we do these and we bend a lot, and that's the first thing. And secondly, you have to keep driving towards your goal. I mean, people are going to be just they're going to try to bring you down. And until you do the race, once you've done my race this in October, then I'd love to hear your comments. Whether we did a good job or a bad job, then you can comment. But at this point, I'm driving towards my goal, and that's putting on a race in the biggest city in the world, where and closing down the West Side Highway and swimming in the Hudson River and running in Central Park. That goal is there. I got my blinders on right now.
Yeah.
I'm headed straight for that goal. You mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that we're doing that sometimes there's things out of race director's control, whether it's the heat in Nice this week where they had to cancel that race. Whatever it is, the number one thing is we're not going to put anybody in the water to start this race without it being 100% safe. So, second to that, we're worried about athlete experience. So, once we make sure we have a safe course and everything is down to the, crossing our T's and dotting our I's is absolutely right. Then we're worried about, what color tents we have and how,
Yeah.
and what kind of branding we have. So, that's my first thing. I guess my answer to your question would be I put my blinders on and drive towards having a safe race that's not going to I'm sorry about that.
Don't worry about it.
I got 100 phones in my office. I apologize.
You should. You're a race director.
I just got to silence 3 of them. Sorry about that. But hopefully I answered that question. I apologize.
No, you did. How many participants do you expect, Tommy?
We're we're right now about halfway to our goal of 2,500.
Oh, wow.
That's our goal.
Wow.
And, it's a race that's had some in the past, some problems with the weather and, some things out of control that were unlucky for a couple of years. So we're trying to reinvigorate the interest in having a race in New York City and put athletes that, trust back in the New York City Triathlon or the Big Apple Triathlon.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You were being a first, we can call it a first year race. It's been obviously a few years. Where are you pulling your volunteers from? How you getting volunteers in there?
So we do a number of things. We'll donate to nonprofits and they'll send out some volunteers and we'll hopefully get athletes to donate to the nonprofit as well. And then we have, I call every single person. I'm hoping to call you as well, Mike. Anybody I can to volunteer at in any spot. And then we have a couple key groups that we'll use in the city. That will one will handle transition area, one will handle some certain aid stations. But volunteers is always it goes. People just think that they show up. There's a lot of
Yeah,
organization involved
yeah,
in getting a volunteer because although volunteers are great and we love volunteers. A race wouldn't happen without a volunteer. There's a aspect of that where because they're volunteers, they may not show up, right? So they may think of it they're just volunteering, so they don't need to show up that day. And to put a volunteer in a place where it's very, very important, we don't do. They're mostly there for support of a person that we really, really trust and is definitely gonna deliver the goods.
yeah. And you have a strong network of tri clubs in the area too. And there, when I'd go to Lake Placid year after year, I just could not believe how many tri clubs there were. I was jealous. In California, we got like four major ones, and you've got tons of
Yes.
them. So it's pretty cool. Are you going to have a pro division?
So I mentioned that the pro division is sort of gonna be that draft legal
That's going to be
sprint
that. Okay.
sprint
Okay.
part of it. So, and that's our elite division. So that's what we just recently added, and we're inviting a bunch of the pros that we know to come out and race that. So stand by for a list of who's going to be racing.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, let's start out with the swim in the Hudson. Yeah, no, it is downstream, and I've been there, and I've been in it, and oh my gosh, you could like doggy paddle, and you're moving pretty well. Is that why you said what you're going to do the same 1,500 distance for the sprint as you are for the Olympics, so to speak?
Yeah. So actually, what happens and exactly right. You're going with the tide, so you barely have to paddle. And some in the previous race, I think in the Ironman they did there's a lot of world records broken
It was
in that
it
race.
was insane.
Uh,
There were guys coming out of the way. There was he was like 48. I knew him, he was like 48 years old, and I looked at the clock, and I said to, forgot who I was talking to, the race director. I go, "Hey, the clock is so messed up." He goes, "What are you talking about?" I go, "I know that dude. There's no way he's just swimming." He goes, "Yes, there is a way." I go, "Oh my
yeah.
gosh, I had no idea."
So, although the swim might be the most daunting thing for a lot of athletes, in this race specifically, it is the thing that we've planned on the most, and that we're most prepared for.
Mm.
So it's what happens in the Hudson. It goes from 79th Street to 99th Street. We're a north swim. And if you don't know tide, I'm sure you know, but for those who don't know tides in the Hudson, they redirect, right? So they'll go north for some time and then they'll go south. So just because you're going north doesn't mean you're swimming against the
Right,
tide. I get
right,
that comment a lot.
right.
And so you're going to be going with the tide. We time it correctly so that it's all flowing north, and then you'll basically be jumping off a barge. We have to build out barges in the Hudson. One at the exit point, and one at the entry point, where you're gonna get into the water, much like a lot of the races you see. A matted barge where you're
Mhm.
jumping off 5 or 6 at a time, and then swimming straight in a straight line. So there's no turns. So you don't even need to know the swim course. And then you're getting out at 99th Street. So about 20 blocks you're swimming. And I think what people should know is that like you said at the beginning of the podcast, we have no intention of putting someone in the water when it's not 100% safe. We're working closely with the city. The city would, has it's the most restrictions of any city on earth. And so that we would never put anybody in harm's way. That we're working close with the DEP. The water is clean water. And if anything were to happen, we wouldn't swim, right? So 100%, we're only doing things for us in a safe way.
So you say they're coming out at 99th. Your transition's going to be Riverside Park. Where's your team?
Yeah, it's all Riverside Park.
Oh,
So
all
you
right.
start at basically 79th Street Boat Basin, and doing a little construction there. But we're basically starting in that spot. Then you're swimming north to get out at 99th Street where we build a barge, and then you transition. So you actually run underneath the West Side Highway, and then you transition in a big soccer field that
Oh, okay.
in Riverside Park.
Oh, okay. Cool. And then they jump on their bike, and you got the course closed, didn't you, for the 2 laps? Did
Yes. So they basically it's one lap,
Oh, it's 1
and
lap.
it's
Okay.
it's a north. You start northbound. We close the 3 lanes northbound on the Henry Hudson Parkway,
Mm.
and which is no one ever rides there, right? So except for the triathlon, no one. So it's very unique. And you see the Hudson on your left going out, and the city on your right, and so you're going all the way up. You're getting into the Bronx a little bit, turning around and coming back to go past the transition area and then do another little loop and come out. So it's out and back basically for both races. Well, the sprint just turns around earlier than the Olympic
That'd be a
does.
pretty fast ride, won't it? Because there's really no you've got one gradual incline kinda going out, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nothing's really flat. Everybody thinks New York City's flat. It's not really that
I
flat.
know, I know.
I think you can motor along because there's a lot of space and that it's a nicely groomed path.
Yeah.
But I think there's a few, you go up on overpasses and down, there's a few little hills there. But yeah, it's relative compared to races in upstate New York and other races, it's certainly a flat course.
So they're running in Central Park, and my question to you is, at that time of day, it'll be a little later in the day. A lot of people obviously get into Central Park and do their workouts. How are you going to be on the inside lane? Is it going to be all cordoned off? So no, how are you going to work that in the park?
Yeah, it's completely coned off. And we're in the inside lane. We have a cone. We
Okay.
have a lane for our race, and then we have a lane for pedestrians who are doing their workout, and then we have an emergency lane. There's 3 lanes basically that we established in Central Park for that whole run. It's a Central Park is the best place to run in the world, right? So the
Right.
just having those athletes so we're not closing it down. They'll be cheering you on. It's a great atmosphere to actually get a race done. And there are probably more athletes that are actually running in Central Park than there would be our athletes. So just on a daily basis, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'll be good. You've got a built-in spectators because obviously athletes know athletes, and when somebody goes flying by at the end of the triathlon, I've heard runners go, "I cannot believe how fast they were going. I thought I was working out fast until I saw them come by." Tommy, how many first timers do you expect to get or people outside of the tri-state area? Uh, because with the shorter distance, I'd hope you get a lot, you know what I mean? Bring them into the sport.
For sure. It's hard to predict exactly how many. But the races. So we do races in California,
Yeah.
Florida, and New York, and all over the country. The first thing I ask when I'm not you with announcing, but I do the pre-race briefing, just so I can explain the courses. And the first thing I ask is how many of you guys first time athletes, and I get, and we probably should put this on our registration. That'd be great. But
Yeah.
I get 40% of people saying they're first time for athletes. And it's always really inspiring because, you're changing these people's lives and you might not see them every day because we have a race every month or so. But then they come up to you and they say, you changed my life. And, I only race with you. And this is, I've been training for this. And, I'm happier in my life. I've lost weight or whatever it is.
Mhm.
It really is inspiring. So, I expect a lot of people to be first timers. I think, 40-50% of people should be first timers here at the Big Apple Tri.
Yeah, the question that I always suggested the race director, is this your first triathlon ever? Because sometimes if you say this is your first triathlon, they think it's for that event. Well, I've done 4 triathlons before, but this is my first one, so when you ask, "Is this your first triathlon ever?" It's kinda cool to see.
I'll change that comment. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, ever, because they could what if it was an older dude did New York City Tri, 15 years ago, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So you are running people would always say, "Riley, are you gonna do, Ironman? Are you gonna do" I'd go do century rides in between traveling and all that good stuff, but there's no way I could pull off the type of training to do an Ironman or even a 70.3 with the schedule. Then I heard rumor, you dude, just, a month after this race are gonna run the New York City Marathon. How the heck are you getting your miles in? I mean,
It's
it
it's early mornings, is the
I
answer to
know,
that.
I know.
Um, I get the miles in early mornings, and I have a great club that I'm part of, where I can meet people to run in the mornings and get those miles in. Trying to go under 2:30 in that marathon, that's the goal, and,
Good for you.
I'm gonna die trying basically, when I'm out there. So, uh, but my dad's, so my dad and I work on this business together, and he's doing Ironman Panama City
I heard
in
that. He's
November.
doing Florida. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and I read something where, and just correct me if I'm wrong here, Mike, but the I read something where that was ranked one of the hardest triath Ironmans to do. Would you agree with that?
Well,
Because the wind?
the swim is a it could be a little choppy. The swim is a swim. You get out of the water. What happens is people they go, this is a flat course in their head. So they
Yeah.
get down in their bars and they pound and pound and pound. They never get out of the seat. There's really no climbing. They get off the bike and they go, what's going on with my body? I'm not used to this. And it just I think it's hard because people think it's easy. And I would always say to everybody, "Hey, dude, it's 140.6 miles. There's no there's no distance like that easy. I don't care if you're climbing, not climbing, whatever it is." But for some reason, Florida always bites people in the butt, so to speak, because they don't think it will. They think, "Oh, I can get this in." So that's why I think it's always ranked harder because people come into it and a lot of them are first timers going, "Oh, it's a flat course." And I trained on hills in Southern California. Doesn't
Yeah.
make any difference. So
So I had a race. So we put on a triathlon upstate New York this Saturday, and those races are harder than the actual long runs or long bikes we're doing on the body. And and on Sunday, I had a long run. My dad had a long brick,
mm,
and I got back from my run. I'm like, let me check on him. I call him up. I'm like, you need a drink or something? He's like, yeah. He needed that. So I went out and I was his aid station for a little while, for his 80-20 or whatever he did, to get ready for that race. So you find time. You have to get, like no one in the sport, by the way, except for maybe a few pro
yeah,
triathletes has the time to do 8 hours of working out a day, right? So you have to. It's one of the parts of our lifestyle where it's almost like you have four events. You have swim, bike, run, and then you have the rest of your life. You have to fit all these workouts in, and I think that's if we are asking athletes to do it, we should also do it ourselves in a way. I think you can only do so many Ironman, in my opinion, at 140.6 distance, but just to get out there and do these races, I think is important, especially if you're putting them on and you know
yeah.
what to look for, the good and the bad.
It's interesting because people and I'm sure this is you're the same way when people would say, "Mike, I don't have time." I go, "I don't wanna hear it." I know people get up earlier, get up an hour earlier, go to bed earlier, I've seen people do it over and over again. So when they say, "I don't have time," yes, you do. You can figure it out because we know hundreds of thousands of others that have figured it out. It's kinda crazy when I hear that.
100%.
So, wish your dad luck for me from Florida. I know it's like his 9th or 10th Ironman because he's done a few. Yeah,
Yes, I believe this is number 9 for
number
him.
9, and the
Yeah,
dude didn't start
yeah,
till his 50s. And there's
yeah.
another thing about people in their 50s, all of a sudden their 60s and they're still going strong. I always kid them and I go, "Okay, you haven't been killing yourself since your 20s, all right? So you started in your 50s. Your injuries are a lot less than mine are."
Yep, yep, yep.
That's what I would tell them. So my final question on Find Your Finish Line, and I know you've got a lot because you've raced a lot. It comes out of the Baja 1000. I've got great friends that are have won the Baja 1000 and 500 in the trophy trucks, and I've ridden second seat with them. And it's just an endurance event, and they get together afterwards and they table race where they reminisce about the race or a prior race. So I call this tri-table racing. Reminisce with us about you doing a race or something that happened in a race that maybe you haven't talked about at all. So tri-table race with us.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my triathlons earlier were learning experiences, just to try to get just my feet in the water, as they say, or just trying to get the hang of those things. And again, all of it comes down to me is swimming. I think when I go back to
Mm.
kind of talking about races and whether or not my swim was good, I think, and I've talked about this a little bit. The swimming and the running and the biking are all different training. They're very different sports. Between biking and running are actually pretty similar sports. There's less impact on the bike, but the swim, is so different. It's so form based and so it's based on you want to take the least amount of strokes. Which coming from a running background, you're like least amount of strokes. Like I want to you want to be high cadence, right? You want to be as fast as you can. And I think when I talk about races, I've I've been swimming as hard as I can. A race. I'm just thinking about a race in Southern California I did in Palm Springs, and I was just swimming as hard as I could, and everybody's going. There's this lady going by me on their back, right? I mean, and I thought I was in pretty good shape. Uh, and then the bike course, I just hammered the bike, and I came out of the bike. I passed a lot of people on the bike, but most of my races, when I talk about races, are all based on me going slow in the swim and then gaining some ground on the bike and run. I will say I did in the running world, I did the California International Marathon in December, which is my first. Yeah, so my first marathon. I guess I've run one before, but never really raced. It's a whole different experience to race one. And those races are not just a half, just like the half Ironman, the full Ironman. I mean, it's not just two half Ironman. It is so much more than that. It's and you get to halfway and you still got another 13.1 to go. I mean, that's why everybody gets broken at mile 18. It's a mental battle. You learn so much and you can't walk for weeks. So it's afterwards. So it was really, really hard and a lot of mental battles I went through, but I got across that finish line after I threw up, of course, and just started crying because I think that's it was just so impactful to, and nobody even announced my name at the finish line, by the way, Mike. So it wasn't it's like I wish I would have had announced it there, but just to cross that finish line, after months and months of training and getting there, was just so it was like a weight lifted off of me. So that's my more recent experience in a race, and then my triathlon experiences, as I said, are a little different. So there you go.
That's great. You got some great experiences in racing, which I love. Now, if people want to register for the race, because registration's still open, go to bigappletriathlon.com. And my last question to you, Tommy, is people are kind of on the fence. They don't know if they want to do the race. Maybe they're a triathlete or a first timer. What advice would you give them?
I would say they should commit today. I think a lot of people wait till January 1st to commit. And I think that if they can commit now while they're listening to this, it's a better plan for them because there's always that you don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. So start today, change your life today, sign up for a race today.
October 10th of this year, the Big Apple Triathlon. And Tommy's right. If you sign up, register for the race, do the event, you won't regret one moment of it, and it'll probably change your life. So, Tommy, thank you very much for your time today. Again, congratulations on putting on the Big Apple Triathlon October 10th, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you, everybody, for joining another edition of Find Your Finish Line. Remember, it's not only about finding your finish line at a race or an event, but also in life. Aloha, everyone.